Hey guys, it's Tiffany, and today I have a storytime video for you. Now, I have a lot of crazy stories, so I plan on doing a series of these storytime videos, but this one today has to do with my old boss from my old job and a funny incident that happened. So once upon a time, I used to work for Joann Fabrics. Now, if you don't know about Joann Fabrics, it's basically a craft store chain that is like half the store is craft items that you would see at like Michael's, AC Moore, and all that. And then the other half is all fabric, apparel fabric, custom fabric, blah, blah, blah. That's what we sold. So I worked for Joann Fabrics for about 4 years. And during that time, I had a manager who we will call David. David started at the store about after I'd been working there a year. And, you know, from the get-go, this guy was an asshole. He was an asshole for no reason. To this day, I'm not sure. I think that's just his personality, that he's a big old jerk. You know, everyone was nice to him when he first started at our store, but he just wasn't having it, I guess. I don't know. I wish I had answers for why he acted the way he did. I don't. He's been working there for a couple months or whatever, and this guy, like, he didn't craft, he didn't sew, to our knowledge at least. I think we even asked him once, like, whenever someone starts, we're like, oh, what kind of crafts or whatever do you do? Because if the customer has a question, then we can refer them to you or whatever. And he's like, he just didn't. And that was common among management. The management, like, at Joann's never really knew how to do the stuff that we sold. You know, makes sense, right? That's why Joann's is such a great company. Anyway, so one day I was at the cutting counter. Actually, I was at the cutting counter every day. But he was buying some performance fabric, which is like, you know, sequins and shiny bits and spandex. And it's not everyday, like, wear, like, repairing something fabric. It's like you're making a costume. And my coworker was like, oh, hey, David, like, I didn't know you sewed or crafted or whatever. What are you making? And he kind of, like, in a very, like, hushed way, he was just kind of like, oh, I'm making something for my niece, or, like, doing an adjustment on something or whatever. And he was just, like, didn't, like, want to talk about it. He was very, like, secretive about it. It was just kind of, like, weird. But he was a weird dude. So, you know, it's like, oh, that's David. So I remember I was closing that shift that night. So he was, like, in a rush to get out of there. I was in a rush to get out of there because I had plans to go out with my friends that night. So the plans that my friends and I had that night were we were gonna go clubbing. That's what we did when we were like 21 years old. We just went out to clubs and bars any, like, weekend night. So the club that we were planning on going to was a local gay club, which is now closed. But it was a Saturday night, and every Saturday night at this club was drag night. And so we all like to go for drag night. And then plus also a friend that we were going with was newly single. He's gay. So we were gonna, like, see if he could, like, mingle with new people and all that. So we go to the club, and I kind of said, like, offhandedly to my best friend, I was like, oh my God, like, I forgot that my asshole manager, David, lives in this town and he's gay. So I was like, that'd be so weird if I, like, ran into him. And I want to know about David. He was gay, which shouldn't matter, but David thought people hated him because he was gay, but people just hated him because he was an asshole. It wasn't prejudice, it was just, like, because of his own actions, people hated his guts. You know, we get a couple drinks, we're dancing, blah, 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 you know, having a great time, and then it's time for the drag show. So the way this club was set up is that you enter, you know, you get carded and whatever, and then there was, like, a big bar, a dance floor with, like, a mini stage, like a raised platform area, and then there was a separate room where there was, like, kind of banquet tables and, like, a dance floor. So there was, like, an empty, like, aisleway for, like, the drag queens to use as, like, a catwalk. And then there was, like, another bar, so you could still get some drinks and whatever. And so, you know, we're watching the drag queens perform and lip sync or whatever, and we tip them and have a grand old time. We're, like, half in the bag, you know, we're drunk off our asses and we're having a good time. So this is where things get interesting. show ends, and everyone mostly files into the bigger dance hall room. And so in this room, until the drag queens kind of like have a break, whatever, because they just got done performing and all that, you can dance on the stage, you can, you know, dance on the dance floor, whatever. So we're told, we're like dancing on the stage or whatever, and then we're all told to get off because drag queens are coming in and they have to perform again on the stage and mingle with the people on the floor. So we're watching more performances, you know, we're dancing, and they kind of have like these big boxes where, almost like go-go dancers, and the drag queens will like get up on these boxes that were like, there was like no cage around them or anything. It was just like, they were just standing on the box dancing, and you'd be like right under them or whatever. You know, I'm dancing with my friends and all that, and we kind of get separated. And so I tell one of these girls who's like, I think her name was Jen. So Jen and I are dancing like underneath one of these boxes or next to one of the boxes. And I say to her like, hey, you know, I'm gonna go find our friends. Maybe they're outside smoking. I need some air anyways. You know, I'm gonna go outside. And back then I smoked. I think all of us smoked pretty much, except for my friend Brienne who came. But don't smoke, guys. Like, I don't smoke anymore. It's bad for you, blah, blah, blah. But back then I smoked. So we're outside on like the smoking porch, or I am, and I find them there, and then we're just kind of like talking to some other people in the club, and we're just like overall kind of being obnoxious or whatever. Like when I drink, I talk very loud, I talk very fast, I'm obnoxious. And then because I saw like one of the drag queens kind of kept looking over at me, who's also out there, and I was like, oh god, like I'm being obnoxious, I should like shut up, maybe I should go back inside. So, you know, we finish our cigarettes, we go back inside, have another drink, you know, and then we dance a little bit, and then we leave for the night. In the car on the way home, this girl Jen is like, you know, Tiffany, I have something to tell you. I'm like, okay, what? And then she's like, oh, I don't know if I should tell you, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, like, I don't even know this girl. I mean, I say that as if, like, I hate her or something, but no, I don't. It's just, like, I don't know her. She's, like, a friend of a friend. I don't even remember her name, her real name. But I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what could you possibly have to tell me that's, like, such a secret or whatever? And she's like, well, one of the drag queens told me something in there and all that. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like, who? I was like, never saw her talk to a drag queen there. And she's like, well, you know, we were dancing on the dance floor near like one of the drag queens on the box, and when you left to go outside, she bent down and was talking to me and asked, hey, is that Tiffany? And then said my full name, Tiffany, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah. She's like, oh, why? And then the drag queen was like, oh, my name's David. I'm her manager. What? I like scream in the car, which I shouldn't have done because it like totally scared like the driver, my friend. But I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Because actually I don't think the drag queen even said their name, but I knew it was David because the only other guy that worked at the store was the store manager, and he was definitely not this person. So I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, oh my god. You know, say to my friends, I'm like, oh my god, that's my asshole boss. Like, I've been telling you about the guy that like is just so mean for like no reason. That is so weird that I even said like, oh my god, what if I ran into him tonight? It was just totally like ironic and funny. So, you know, I go home for the night, you know, I hop in a shower, you know, I go to bed, I crash. Sometime the next day I get a call, and I see that it's David, you know, my caller ID, and I'm like, oh god, like I don't want to talk to him, like there's nothing good that could come of this, because it's like either he wants me to come into work, or it's like, I don't know what it could be. So I pick up, I'm like, hello. And he's talking like in a very hushed tone, because I think he was working that day. I think he was scheduled to work to be the manager on duty. And I'm like, hello? And he's like, hello, Tiffany? So he's like whispering, and I'm like, yeah? Like, like, obviously you know it's me because you called me. So, and he's like, oh, well, I wanted to talk about last night. And I'm like, okay, what's up? I'm like, what is there really to talk about? I don't think he realized that this girl, like, told me, what happened, because what he says is, you know that drag queen on the box? Which, in retrospect, there was, like, 4 boxes down there. It could have been, like, anyone, but it's like, okay. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, that was me. And I go, yeah, no. The girl that you told me. Like, how was she, like, not gonna tell me? And then he's like, I didn't know that you would, like, ever, like, go there. I didn't realize you were into, and he just kind of trailed off. I think he thought I was a lesbian, you know, at that point, which, who cares? And he just kind of was like, I'd appreciate it if you don't tell it at work. And I'm like, yeah, I never was going to tell it at work. I feel like that's, like, not my place. I feel like if you wanted everyone at work to know your business and know that you are a drag queen, you know, you perform drag, that you would tell people, which he did later, years later. But other than that, I was like, I feel like I wouldn't, like, I would never out someone. Like, if you, like, everyone knows, like, he was gay, but, like, just because you're gay doesn't mean, like, you would do drag and stuff like that. So it's just kind of like, yeah, no, like, I totally respect that. You know, I was never going to tell. I'm not going to tell. And I even ended the conversation on a good note, and I was like, oh, hey, yeah, my friends and I thought, like, you were great. Like, you're a great performer. I mean, he was a good performer. He wasn't the best, but he was decent, you know. And so we ended, like, the conversation at that. Ironically, now that I knew that he was that particular drag queen, I had seen him perform I think at least once, if not twice before, but I think that was before he started working at the store. So that was just kind of funny that I didn't put 2 and 2 together. After our conversation, after he obviously realized that I, you know, he told me, he basically told this girl who told me, I probably would have never put 2 and 2 together. I was, like, drunk off my ass. I never would have realized he was a drag queen. But I thought he was going to be nicer. I had, like, a little hope that this man was going to be nice, like, and treat me like a human being, at least. If not, just because that's what you should do, is treat people kindly. But if he wouldn't do it just to be a kind person, that if he would just do it because he'd be afraid that I would say something. But no, he continued to be a jerk. But, yeah, that's kind of the end of the story. Years later, he did mention to coworkers that he was a performing drag queen, that he ended up, like, transferring to another store, and then he, like, rage quit. And that's all I know about him. And then I ended up quitting the location that we worked at, you know, after working there for 4 years. So I stayed, like, 3 more years and had to deal with this guy. But that's my story, how I found out my boss was a drag queen. If you have a similar story, tell me about it below. If you like Storytime videos, give me a thumbs up, subscribe. I do plan on doing more funny videos, funny stories about my life. So, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.